VLR.
If spending money like water was the answer to our country's problems, we would have no problems now.
And it is Wednesday night, which means it is indeed time for another edition of the Modern Comment Show, featuring our good friend Amy. So, without further ado, here's Amy.
Thanks, Taylor. Good evening, and welcome back to Vigilant Liberty Radio and another edition of the Modern Comments Radio Show. I am Amy, your host, and I'm glad you are joining me this evening. If you'd like to get involved with the program, you can do so by going to vigilantlibertyradio.us/chat, and you can click on the player there because we don't like autoplay here at VLR, and then click on where it says click here to chat, join the chat room.
Not having autoplay is a good thing, by the way.
Yes, not having autoplay is an awesome thing. And then you click on here to chat, you choose Java or Flash. We find Java works best for Apple and Flash works best for PC. Type in a username, join us in the chat room, and I'll try to pay attention to what's going on there. Or you can tweet me at Modern Comments, and I will try to respond and work your comments or questions into the program. Without further ado, I would like to welcome my producer this evening, Taylor. How are you this evening, Taylor?
Now that my computer is working, just fine.
Excellent. Yeah, we had concerns we weren't going to get to talk to you this evening, and I'm glad.
Yeah, thanks iTunes.
iTunes?
Actually, I really don't know if it's iTunes' fault.
We can blame iTunes, though. That works.
Yeah. I had to do a system restore 30 minutes before the show started.
Nice. Yeah, that's never a good thing. But you're here, and we can find you on Twitter at iDesertBlog. So thank you for being here.
Desert Blog.
EYE Desert Blog. I'm also going to welcome to the program this evening a perennial favorite here on VLR and one of my favorite people on Twitter, Heather Blueware. Good evening, Heather. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much. You guys are too sweet.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're on the program. I always like when I get a chance to speak with you. So, thanks for being on. And you are on Twitter at HBlueware, HBOULWARE.
Yes.
And one more person I'd like to welcome to the panel tonight who is not on social media, even though I try to and nag him, and that's Dave.
Hello. I prefer communicating by smoke signals.
So,
cigar smoke signals?
Occasionally.
No, making large fires.
Yes, large fires and burning our grill equipment to unusable states.
Yes, I've killed 2 chimneys. The handles just burned off.
In the past 2 weeks. So, but we'll save that for another topic. I want to get started by doing something that I normally don't do because it's not very mature and it's not very professional, but I want to gloat for a moment. Yesterday here in Wisconsin, we had our primaries, and one of the races that was very heavily watched and kind of hotly contested was the race for Milwaukee County Sheriff. We have Democrat David Clark, who, is it fair, I guess, Dave, to say that he's a Democrat in name only?
Yes, he is a Democrat for convenience.
Yeah, he is more conservative than many Republicans or conservatives that I know. And he was facing off against candidate, and I'm going to blank on his first name off the top of my head.
Chris Mose.
Chris Mose, or Muse, depending on who pronounces it. He is a Milwaukee police lieutenant. And if you recognize David Clark's name, even just sort of in passing, it's because he came to sort of national prominence over the past year, releasing some public service announcements saying self-defense is important, know how to defend yourself, take, a safety course, learn firearm safety, because the police can't always be there on time to protect you. This got the usual suspects riled up because they found it patently offensive that a law enforcement officer apparently would tell people that they need to defend themselves.
Oh, and another pointer, he's not just conservative, he's a black conservative.
Yes.
Oh, no. That's really bad.
In a very, very famous incident on local talk radio, a liberal caller into one of the programs accused the host of being racist for not voting for black candidates. And when the host said, I do vote for black candidates, I voted for David Clark, the caller said, but he doesn't count. He's not really black because he's conservative. After which the host rightly and properly smacked him down. But back to yesterday, we had the primary, and the thing about Wisconsin, which I've talked about, we don't have to declare a party here in Wisconsin, but we do, when we have a primary, have what we call closed primaries, where we're only allowed to vote a straight ticket. We can only vote in the Democrat primary, we can only vote in the Republican primary. We can't cross over and vote for different candidates in different offices. So there was quite a bit of Republican crossover yesterday. There weren't a lot of hotly contested Republican races. The governor, Scott Walker, was not being primaried. So there wasn't much incentive for people to vote in the Republican primary, in my opinion. And lots of people crossed over and voted for David Clark, and he ended up winning the re-election, by nearly 5 percentage points, roughly 5,000 votes. And the thing about this that I want to gloat about is that he was outspent, depending on the source you read, by a margin of 6-1. The Wisconsin Reporter said that backers to his opponent outspent Clark by a ratio of 6-1, including the anti-gun mayor Mike Bloomberg, who sunk at least $150,000 into the opposition campaign, running smear ads on television that made me want to vote for Clark rather than make me not want to vote for Clark.
Yeah, they had a great one about it. Tell David Clark to stop endorsing gun violence. They had sound bites about him, about aim for the center mass, get this guy out, he's staining the carpet. For me, wonderful reasons to vote for the guy.
Yeah, so I have to take a moment and revel in the fact that Bloomberg was handed, they being local media, called it a narrow victory, but I don't think that nearly 5 percentage points is a narrow victory. And I want to give kudos to Clark, and to Mike Bloomberg, I've asked Taylor kindly to cue up a soundbite.
You know what, that I've been playing a couple of times when there have been pauses in your voice to be appropriate, one that maybe sounds something like this.
Yes, exactly. Yes, the infamous laugh of Nelson Muntz, because when I saw the news that Clark had won, that's basically what I did, because that's how I feel about Mike Bloomberg. As far as I'm concerned, he can keep wasting his money on campaigns that go nowhere, because now Clark is running unopposed in the general election. The Republicans did not put a candidate against him. So this is basically him winning re-election, even though it was the primary. So Milwaukee County for another 4 years, and I'm very happy about that. So.
And a little spin on Mr. Conan, the barbarian, rather than talk show host. What is best in life? To crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to read the lamentations of the liberals.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly, because I think they were all sort of surprised that Clark won. But, sorry, Mr. Bloomberg, you'll have to try harder.
Sorry.
Cranky T-Rex in the chat said, maybe we can get them to do that fire challenge.
Yes, the fire challenge. Well, Chris,
no.
I will oblige you briefly, because it's not going to be a very long discussion. Yes, if you don't know what the fire challenge is, Chris, Cranky T-Rex, pointed it out to us earlier on Twitter before the show went live. It is a craze, and a craze on social media.
It's crazy, is what it is.
It's crazy. Where teenagers set themselves on fire and film it to be on social media. I don't know what to say for that other than it's stupid, except maybe to appease Chris, who said we needed more swear words. It's fucking stupid. And the story that he pointed out was about a mom who was 41 years old who got arrested for allowing her 16-year-old son to douse himself with nail polish remover and light himself on fire. And he asked what we would do if our kids came to us and said they wanted us to film them setting themselves on fire, because that's what this mom allegedly did. And my response would be, no fucking way. And then I would call the parents of every kid that they knew and told them what was going on. And my kids' social lives would be non-existent. Hermits living in the Mongolian outback would have better social lives than my children.
At least you go around looting, raping, and pillaging once in a while.
Exactly. So it would...
It's stupid. Okay?
It's incredibly... I said the same
stupid.
thing. If my son came and asked me that, I would completely flip shit and ground him forever and be on the phone with every parent of every friend he has.
I'd rather they engage in more wholesome activities, like my generation used to do, like sticking bottle rockets up their asses and firing them.
Yes, exactly. I mean, can't you just be normal children and jump off the roof onto a mattress?
Jump off the roof, try to fly.
Exactly.
I mean, kids are going to do stupid stuff that's not... This is beyond stupid. I don't even think there's a proper word for it.
There isn't. I mean, kids, especially, and let's face it, this is true, especially boys between the ages of around 8 to 14 are just idiotic. And
they are.
But we have tried and true methods of, all sorts of things that you can, again, the flying off the roof and jumping out windows and, skateboarding behind the car and all of those things. Let's not invent new idiotic things to do.
Wow,
like catching yourself on fire.
So basically, I was a nice boy because the only thing that I ever did that was daring at that age was climb up on the roof of my high school. The only thing I ever did.
Why did you climb up on the roof of your high school? I'm intrigued.
I just did.
You just did?
Yeah.
Guess you could.
Yeah.
I suppose that's fair. That's fair. Yeah,
okay.
I don't want to say I was a girl because that sounds sexist, but I didn't do stupid stuff like that. Probably because I was a girl. And the worst thing, I have caught my 7-year-old jumping from the top bunk to the single bed in the bedroom over a gap of about 3.5, 4 feet because he saw it on Ninja Warrior. So, I fully anticipate broken bones and scraped knees and black and blue eyes, but setting themselves on fire, I think kind of crosses a line.
Last summer, my son, who's just utterly brilliant, let me tell you. He's on his skateboard with his cousin, and they're in the street, and Jake was trying to do some move. It has a name, and I don't remember it now. And skateboard flew out from underneath him, and he landed on his wrist and broke his wrist in 2 places.
Youchie.
So he had to have surgery and have a pin put in it to hold the bone together, and he had a cast on and all of this stuff. And about 3.5 weeks after he'd had this accident, he went to a therapy appointment. And he had ridden his bike and was leaving the actual hospital parking lot. Okay, now you have to understand he's riding his bike out of the emergency room entrance in front of the hospital and got hit by a car.
That's awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so he flies off of his bike and lands on the ground, and of course they call 911, and the ambulance has to drive from the emergency room like 50 feet to pick up Jake off the street, and they take him back to the emergency room. He ended up he had hurt his leg, and the tire of his bike or something tore a big chunk of skin out. He was totally fine. But nevertheless, he calls me and he says, "Mom, I got hit by a car." And because it's my son, my first reaction is, this isn't funny. Don't do these things to your mother, Jake. This is not funny at all. And he's like, I'm serious. I made his aunt get on the phone and tell me because I didn't believe him.
Didn't believe him?
No, I thought he was making it up. So, yes, this is what happens to mothers with sons. I mean, they break their arms and then they get hit by cars.
My dad used to set things on fire when he was a kid.
So
Yeah.
which is why my
not himself though. Let's clarify that.
other things, which is why Papa Jim and my boys in the chemistry set are not allowed in the same universe together.
There you
There's
go.
Well,
No.
to be fair, see, the reason why I didn't do a lot of, crazy stuff was I would just get hurt just in general. Weird stuff would happen. Case in point, did y'all ever play the game where you throw the parachute up in the air and everybody runs underneath it, tries to get to the other side?
Yes, in like gym class in elementary school.
Yes.
Yeah. I ran into my best friend, knocked myself unconscious, and got 13 stitches in my eye.
Oh my goodness. I shouldn't laugh at that, but that would be something that I would do. I twisted my ankle walking across the street and had to be taken away by ambulance because it was in the middle of, it was not in the middle of, it was right after the 4th of July fireworks. So imagine there being thousands of people around you as you fall down and have to be taken away by an ambulance. And I was like 17. So, you're socially awkward, you want people to like you, and you want to be popular. And here I am getting carted away in an ambulance because I twisted my ankle walking across the street.
Captain Beezer in the chat room. Captain, welcome, by the way.
Hi, Captain.
Asked, aren't the parachute games banned these days? I don't know. I don't have kids.
That's a really good question. I think my kids have done them in school, and they're 7 and 5.
I think it depends on the school or maybe the school district,
Mhm.
because my son has done them, but my daughter, who goes to a like an enterprise school, which is like a magnet school or a charter school,
Mhm.
doesn't. So I think it sort of depends on maybe the school district or the school itself.
They got just choose not to do it. Let's see. The other way that I got hurt once was I was at church. I got hurt twice at church. Believe it or not, at church.
Okay.
Once I was at the Wednesday night service, and we were doing one of the Christian. It was like Awanas or something like that. And we were running out of the temporary buildings where we were housed, and I tripped over a friend of mine's legs, and went right into a nail. 3 stitches.
Ooh.
3 stitches
Ow.
in my chin.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
Wow.
Then when Cranky T-Rex, you're lucky that you hit every branch and landed in the snow when you fell out of your tree.
Yeah, that could have been.
That's impressive.
Then
that is impressive.
when I was 3 years old, 3 years old, Christmas Eve,
Oh, no.
I decided to give myself. I decided that I wanted to do my best imitation of Plastic Man, Mr. Fantastic, whatever. I don't know. I was reaching out to grab something. My hand slipped, and my chin went right into the countertop that was in my room. 3 stitches later.
This is a theme with you, isn't it?
When I was 18 months old, I climbed out of my crib. I think I had heard my mom and dad come home and saw my sister get out of bed. And I decided I got out too, and I fell off and drove my tooth through my lip.
Oh, that's the
Ow.
story that makes me cringe.
Okay. Enough.
Okay, now,
Enough with the
time
blood,
out.
guts,
Alan Bordius, you are defaming me on Twitter. You are defaming me on
And I
Twitter.
tweeted it, so I'm party to the crime.
Oh, wait, at iDesert Blog, EYE, is talking about getting hurt, and at H Bullware hasn't asked about his propensity for tripping on his cat.
I didn't mention that before we went live.
I
Wait.
have not tripped on Ava.
Recently.
I haven't tripped on Ava, and I think I only tripped on her once.
Yes, and you, you nearly had to have your leg amputated.
No, I didn't.
Wait, hang on. No, you have to explain this now in detail because I've never heard this story. And
I don't even know what she's
when
talking.
you fell down the stairs. Remember when you fell down the stairs?
No, I didn't trip on her.
I thought you said you tripped on her and fell down the stairs.
No.
Oh, or you were avoiding her and that's how you tripped down the stairs.
No, I was going down the stairs. The stairs are carpeted. One of the carpets is loose, and I slipped.
Oh, okay. See, I thought it was the cat. Sorry.
Okay, well, we stand correct. Well, Heather stands corrected. I just enjoyed the story.
Sorry. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Boyd in the chat room says, if you're not getting hurt, you're not doing anything. And I think that's very well said. Round of applause, Boyd.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
But there's a fine line between doing things and setting yourself on fire for the latest social media trend. I will have to say that. Speaking of social media trends...
And things that could be considered the equivalent of setting yourself on fire.
It could be, depending on your view.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, yes, Alan, you are blameless, is the last week, the Fatkini hashtag. And I'm going to link a story from the New York Post into the chat room. And this is sort of the latest social media craze. It doesn't involve self-immolation of women who are larger. In some cases, they call themselves fat, plus size, curvy, whatever language they choose to use, posing in what are essentially bikinis for big girls. And sort of as a way to, how do I say this without raining all sorts of hell down on me, embracing themselves for who they are and looking to promote positive body image and acceptance. And I wanted to talk about this because I am, and I've talked about this publicly on Twitter, so it's not a surprise, I am a bigger girl. So when stuff like this pops up, I have a couple reactions to it. There can be some people on both sides of the aisle who are horribly cruel. Horribly cruel. Yeah, big girls aren't your thing. Fine, great. Just think before you tweet about it, because there may be some of us like me who I don't think this bikini hashtag thing is a good idea, and while I do go swimming and I do go to the beach, I probably wouldn't wear one. But
here's my feeling about it. I'm incredibly lucky as a woman because I don't have weight issues. I mean, I can pretty much eat anything and I hardly ever gain weight. When I do, I lose it very, very quickly.
Okay,
so I don't
you anymore.
I mean, yeah, but it's, it's not that it's neither good nor bad. But here's my thing. Women who are really overweight, one, I think it's important to stress the idea that, there are health issues involved in that, and you should at least watch your diet. Now, does weight itself make you, sickly or pre-diabetic or any of those things? I don't know. There's research that says either way, and it more depends on how you eat and when and all that kind of stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're larger and you can rock a bikini at the beach and be comfortable in your own skin doing it, more power to you. And everyone should just shut up about it.
And that's part of it. But I do think that in some instances, and this is probably not going to be popular, and I'm going to disagree a little bit with Heather here. If you're a bigger girl, there are just some things you cannot wear.
And I agree. I
love to wear a bikini? Yes. Do I want to do that to all of humanity? No. It's a Captain Ahab to the white courtesy phone kind of moment. And Dave is over here shaking his head, so I will let him have his piece because he wants to say something, which I think will be nice, but we'll see.
Well, I also think it depends on the other things like the age and the body type. There are some bigger girls who look great in any kind of clothing, got great fashion sense, or try to anyways. I'm married to a full-figured lady whose body I appreciate, and that was one of the things besides her mind and her spirit that attracted me to her. But there are some kinds of full figures that should not be in that sort of clothing, and I won't go into much detail. There's just some things which should not be seen by mortal eyes in public.
I think one of the biggest differences is I've seen some, because for the show I actually went and kind of perused around on the Fatkini hashtag, and I've seen some of these bikinis that are fairly modest. I mean, they're obviously bikinis, but they're fairly modest, and they're not so like, just super tight and showing skin, and they look like that you've tried to put a 300-pound body in a size 6 bikini.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those to me are tasteful, and if you can own that and rock it and you're comfortable, be my guest. Yeah. If you try to stick your size 16 butt in a size 4 bikini bottom, that's not attractive. And it's not because you're fat, it's because it's horrible looking. It's not flattering. It's mm-hmm. not cute. It's not, I mean, it's just ugly.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, first, that's my thing.
Yeah. First, I have to say Alan wins the chat room tonight because he says Dave probably can't win this discussion, and he calls it the Kobayashi Maru. And plus 1,000 for the Star Trek reference. I love it very much. But yes, there are, part of this hashtag was to gain acceptance, and Heather's right, and if you can do it and you can rock it. And some of these bikinis weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. But there are some things that bigger girls cannot wear. And trying to actually makes you look worse. Would I love to rock these short shorts and the cowboy boots because I think that's an adorable look? Oh, yeah. But I would look ridiculous. It would not work. And the other thing is, we are getting such mixed messages from culture. On one hand, you have our first lady, who is big on this childhood obesity, eat right, lose weight, let's move campaign.
Fascist.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to delve too far into that, but
no. To be perfectly honest, there's a lot of things I can knock Michelle Obama for, and I'm certainly not a fan of her interfering with school lunches and pushing the agenda. But if she wants to get out there and tell kids, let's move and get off the couch and drink more water and eat healthier snacks and all of that stuff, go. Get after it. That's like
her thing as first lady. As long as it doesn't go into policy and
exactly
dictating.
As long as she's not trying to tell me what I can and cannot eat, I'm absolutely fine with it.
Yeah,
and force her choices on me. But if she wants to, do health spots and go to schools and talk to kids about drinking more water and eating healthier and exercising more and all of that stuff, then get on it. We absolutely need that. I have no issue with it whatsoever.
And I don't until it crosses that line into affecting policy and forcing people to make these choices. But we have this, and it's not just the first lady. I mean, she's just part of it, but it's, they're saying obesity and morbid obesity and the body mass index, which we could spend an hour talking about that by itself. But we have a culture that's saying being heavy is detrimental to your health and all of these things that you shouldn't be. And then we have these campaigns saying you should accept yourself for who you are. And can you see how people would get confused by this? Yes, bless you. Because you're sending people these mixed messages. Either you're awful because you're overweight, and that's not what they're saying, but it sometimes is the implication that if you are overweight, there's something wrong with you. It's a moral failing more than a physical condition. I guess is a good way to put it, that you're overweight simply because you eat too much and you don't exercise enough. And that is part of it, but it doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. And sometimes that's implied. And then there's this, you should love your body and be able to wear whatever you want and accept yourself for who you are. And it's
a lot of mixed message. It's the same thing with girls. We tell the girls that they look fine the way they are, when in fact sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. And yet then we bombard them with issues of these airbrush supermodels that they want to be like. It's too much. I mean, you need, pick a narrative, but you can't expect us to give you both.
You can't, no. And the thing is, I am the way I am because maybe I could eat better and exercise more, and I want to lose weight, and I have lost quite a bit of weight. I mean, I put on quite a bit. I have 3 children. It happens, and it shouldn't have, and that's, my fault. And this notion that somehow a hashtag is going to change that, and the way culture perceives me, that bugs me, and it makes me feel like they're whining on my behalf. And it's like, no, I dress in a way that flatters my body. I dress in a way that makes me feel good, but don't do activism in my name just because I'm a bigger girl.
As perspective of a guy who likes the fuller figure, the balance. On the one hand, you have Marilyn Monroe and, say, Rosemary Clooney in her prime would be considered obese now, even though they were considered like almost perfect figures. At least Rosemary Clooney back in the day, like from White Christmas, I thought she cut a very striking figure, like kind of a very curvy figure. But on the other hand, and you think that the perfect figures look like a heroin addicted supermodel, and that's not healthy either. On the other hand, and there are some women who just aren't going to be slim or skinny. They have a bigger, you could say, bigger bones, huskier build, more of the full figured build, and that's okay. That's the way God made them. On the other hand, if your body type is something like make Jabba the Hutt look flattering, and then maybe that is not a good idea to have a positive. That's the other extreme.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and the sort of attacks go the other way. There's that real men like curves, dogs like skin and bones thing, and that is so counterproductive to like anything. I know some women who are incredibly thin, and it's just who they are and how they are, and there are guys that find that attractive. There are guys that find my body type attractive. Obviously, he's sitting right here choosing his words very carefully because I know where he sleeps at night. So, just like yourself for who you are, but this sort of accept me and validate how I feel, that has to come from you. And
Yes.
sounds so Stuart Smalley, and I apologize, but no hashtag is going to make you accept yourself. And if you feel great and you actually rock it, but you're doing it, but instead you're doing this because you want to be part of this social media campaign, that's not going to help you. You're going to end up feeling the same way you did before this started, because you need to sort of find that place where you accept yourself and say, this is who I am, and I like myself, and forget the rest of you if you don't. And that confidence, I will tell you, is more attractive than even the nicest clothes or the best, most flattering
Yes.
fat bikini. And I hate that name, fat bikini. Just call it a bikini, and it's a plus size bikini. Don't call it the fat bikini. Just no.
Well, I mean, I think we've gotten to the point with so much of this that it's gotten just completely out of control.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're you can't shame anybody about anything, but but the government is going to force you to do these things for your own good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like, oh, okay, because that makes perfect sense.
What I would like to see come of this is a pushback against that. A pushback against the government saying, we're going to, we talked about this on the program a couple of weeks ago, the FDA going to be nudging people into making the correct food choices. Where is the hashtag against that?
Exactly. Here's what I would say. If we can start a hashtag like, fatkini or yes all women or, feminists are horrible or whatever the newest ones are these days, because there's 1,000 of them. If we can start a hashtag and get 1 million women to post pictures and participate in a hashtag, what the hell do we need the government for?
Bingo. Exactly.
I mean, if we can influence each other through social media and other means, why do we need a government mandating us to do anything? I mean, because really, when you think about it, the hashtag is really what's influencing us. It's not something the government said or did. It's us trying to better each other.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if we have a hashtag, what do we need them for?
Exactly. And I want to stand and applaud, because that's an excellent point.
There we go.
There we go. Heather wins the radio program. Alan wins the chat room. And talking now about social media and the presence of this in our lives, I want to transition to something that's a lot more serious and depressing and a bigger topic. I'm just going to just kind of shift gears on the show here. And I want to talk about what happened in Ferguson, Missouri with Michael Brown. If you aren't aware, Michael Brown is the 18-year-old a young man who was shot by a police officer and killed on a street in Ferguson, Missouri this past Saturday. I've read through various news articles, and as of right now, what I've seen as of the time I was prepping for the show, they haven't identified the police officer, but I've seen reports from CNN that the officer is white. Brown was an African American. There are conflicting stories about what happened. What we know is that he was walking to his grandmother's house, Harris's house, a friend's house, when a police officer confronted Brown and his friend. And this is where the stories sort of diverge. Some witnesses say Brown was holding up his hands and was not doing anything to the officer, and the officer shot him. Others, including, I believe, the officer and some of the police, are saying that he was getting aggressive with the officer and may have been even trying to take his weapon. It caused outrage in the community because he was a young man who, from what I've read, had not been in trouble. He had just graduated from high school. He was due to start college this past Monday, so 2 days after he passed away, after he was shot. And in Ferguson, they've had looting and protesting bordering on near riots. And I want to talk about it because it's important in the context of how social media impacts what's going on here. Because you've seen the videos, the vines, the pictures on Twitter and Facebook, and how the word gets out. And also in the context of sort of this police militarization of some of the images I'm seeing are disturbing me. The police in the camo with the guns. I've read a report from, let me see if I can find the link, where they tear gas people who are in their own backyard. And first, I don't understand the rioting. I understand that people are heartbroken that this young man was killed. And my heart breaks for the family, but the family has even said they don't want this violence and the looting and the near riots in the name of their son. That's not what they want. That's not what they want to come of this. They want justice. And it's still going on. Now it's Wednesday night. Things are still not settled down there. I saw that Al Sharpton was going to go there, and I didn't really read up on what happened with his visit, if he did.
He evidently, from what I read, he did go. And he was there. He did not participate in a rally or make any public appearances. He simply went and talked to the family. Now, that could change. I mean, he may appear in public later at some point or something, but from what I understand, he didn't. And part of the reason was there was concern that he would inflame tensions and make things worse. So, and obviously he decided, or, Al Sharpton, I mean, he would have been all over the place screaming bloody murder that they weren't letting him speak or whatever. So, but from what I understand, he went and just talked to the family.
It was at the family's request, and he respected that, which would
yes.
Be a credit to Sharpton if he actually listened, is following their wishes.
Yes, it would be a credit to him that he handled it in a tactful way that didn't make more issues than there already are.
Yes.
But I wanted to get into this because the police haven't been doing a very good job of handling this. They were going to release the officer's identity, and then they didn't. And I can understand why they're not going to, because tensions are so high and it might put him in danger, or his family if he has a family. I don't know. But then they shouldn't have said that they were going to release it, because now they look like they do not know what they're doing. It looks almost like an amateur hour. And you would think that police would have sort of protocols for this and how to handle this with the media in the wake of a shooting. And I don't know, is that something you would care to comment on, Dave? Working with law enforcement?
Yeah, a little bit of disclosure. I do work in law enforcement with the police. I have a position with the police department. I'm not an officer. But this sort of thing is like one of the, on the policeman's side, an ultimate nightmare, because we might be privy for our work on some of the details, but what the story is, and it comes out in the perception of what happened, maybe whole different things, and the whole truth on what actually happened may not come out until much later. Until then, it's just a mess.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a good way of putting it. But some of the stuff I'm seeing, I mean, the rioting does not help the situation at all. And there needs to be a response to that, because they destroyed a Quick Trip and they've been looting other stores. And it doesn't help the situation to have something so awful happen in the community and then make things worse by destroying people's businesses and people's livelihoods and taking people's property. My own opinion is that doesn't solve the issue. I understand that people are upset.
Well, I've been saying on Twitter for 2 days. I mean, look, I understand that the shooting of an unarmed, and the whole thing about the unarmed, I find quite baffling, because I'm not really sure what him being unarmed has to do with anything. You don't have to be armed to be a direct threat to someone.
Well, if he was grabbing for the weapon.
If he was grabbing for the weapon, he was about to be armed. So, I mean, the whole idea of an unarmed black teenager is like, well, I mean, unarmed doesn't mean he's not a threat. But anyway, so, the shooting of this kid, and I understand it's horrifying, and, the whole thing, obviously something went horribly wrong, and, to investigate and find out what's going on. But I cannot fathom how anyone can think that looting and stealing televisions and beer and burning down a Quick Trip and smashing windows and destroying people's businesses and homes and property, that these wholly innocent people are how is that in any shape, way, or form getting justice for this dead child?
It doesn't. And
it just... there's nothing. And now, if you want to get 10,000 people to stand around with signs in front of the police station and city hall and the mayor's office and chant, we want justice and blah, 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 be my guest. I mean, you absolutely have the right to do that, and I would encourage it. But the idea that this turns into this riot that then leads to assault and arson and violence and, destruction, it is unfathomable. It's ridiculous.
Now, there is something that has to be figured out tonight, or at least at some point. Is for one, there is I don't know if have y'all seen the images from today about how pretty tense that it's been in Ferguson.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, just what was it? Not even 2 hours ago, they arrested 2 reporters in a McDonald's.
Yeah. And and there have been some complaints, and actually it's not. I mean, they are legit complaints, I think, about how the reporters are making themselves the story now.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. You don't want to. You never want to make yourself the story. This is why I'm not going to mention who they are, but one so-called reporter who did a nice job at debunking every town or every whatever has become a laughingstock because he's made himself the story when it comes to the McDaniel Cochran race.
Oh, the
I'm not saying
Johnson.
who it is. Yes.
Yeah. Whatever.
But and so that's a part of the problem. Now, I watched the video that they that was released of the Washington Post reporter being arrested. I really don't think that there was probable cause there. Were they not leaving when the cops were saying, hey, you need to leave? Yeah, they weren't. But I don't think that... I don't think that the arrests were really...
Let's be realistic. The cops could have used some common sense.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 2 reporters from HuffPo and wherever the other guy's from...
Washington Post.
Washington Post and HuffPo are probably not a threat. You see, I mean,
No.
come on.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic. And they're the media. I mean, so at some point, the police need to take a step back and a deep breath and assess the situation and say, okay, guys, really, we're not going to argue with you. Get your shit and get out of here.
Yeah. Now,
the arresting them and dragging them out in handcuffs and all was way, way over the top.
Yeah.
And again, not that the reporters, I mean, yes, they're sort of making the story about them, but the police aren't helping, ease the tensions here any either.
Yeah, and and a part of the problem, I think tonight, one of the reasons why you've seen things so crazy is the response that the St. Louis County Police had for tonight was way over the top. They heard about this protest, and the SWAT team showed up.
Right.
And this is the problem with the military. And listen, I've said this I'll say this now, I'll say it again, and I'll be honest about it. I wanted to be a cop. I still want to be a cop. I wanted to be a cop growing up, and I still want to be a cop. I was about to be a police officer in 2008 before I got my current job. And so I have a ton of respect for police and what they do. I think that they do a great job. I think tonight they made a massive mistake.
Well, they started, I mean, in my honest opinion, they started yesterday, and late yesterday afternoon and into last night, making mistakes. I mean, the bringing in the tanks and the riot gear and acting like, they're about to, put martial law down on this town was escalating the situation way beyond what was necessary.
Well, I put the link in the chat room to the Riverfront Times where there's a video of them firing tear gas on people in their own backyard, and
right.
It's
I
not
think
helping, and
it makes it. I mean, then people who like us, who are fairly libertarian, but also we speak out against police overreach and overreaction, and there have been a lot of stories in the news of police shooting dogs and suspects and things like that we've all spoken out about. When police do this kind of stuff, it makes it very difficult for us to defend them.
Exactly.
But it also, the protesters or the rioters' reaction to this also makes it difficult to argue against police over-militarization. So you have this perfect storm right here in this town that's showing exactly what happens when you get two extremes and put them together.
Yeah, and it just seems like it's snowballing.
It is. And it's, I haven't said this and I haven't tweeted it yet. I'm sure I will here in a minute. But my honest opinion at this point, the only thing that is going to stop this is an outside force coming in and forcing the protesters and the police to back down into their respective corners. It's going to take.
There are people who are pushing for the National Guard to come in. There are people pushing for.
No, I don't think that would work.
That's going to make things even worse. Because
the National Guard is just
the National Guard.
Yes, then you're looking. You send in the National Guard, and you're looking at something like the Bundy Ranch with people actually shooting.
Yeah,
is what's gonna happen. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I think at this point maybe the FBI, not ATF, because they have a horrible reputation for this, but maybe the FBI or other Missouri like St. Louis or another town or something coming in and saying, okay. They make a line in the middle and say, look, we need, people from here, and everybody back up to your respective corners. Let's all disperse, go home, back this entire thing up and see where we are. And I think that's the only way this is, unless, of course, nothing happens and sometime in the next 12 hours, this powder keg blows up.
Yeah, in Milwaukee, we were dancing on the edge of rioting over a racial case. This fellow named Frank Jude had gotten beaten up by Milwaukee police, and people went up in arms over that, and it got
because they went to trial and were found not guilty.
Yeah, they were found not
right.
Were found not guilty in state court, and what happened there, it's unfortunate it happened, but there were two young boys who vanished. They were found drowned in a park. But in the search for them and the whole thing, that actually brought people together and made people realize that they should be working together rather than apart.
Yeah, and it was horrible and heartbreaking for those boys to die, and I hope to God that doesn't happen in Ferguson. But I mean, we came close to having an issue here because of the verdict in the Frank Jude trial, and it took what you said as an outside force, something to focus the community and bring the community together, and finding those boys who, if I recall correctly, walked on a lagoon in this park, and it was cold, but the ice, they fell through the ice, and they were found, drowned,
Right.
And that sort of diffused the
Right.
situation.
And I'm certainly not advocating that, God forbid something horrible
Yes.
have to happen to do
Yeah.
this. But I do think unless the only, I mean, we are pretty much down to either an outside force is going to have to come in and negotiate a complete back down of this, or this powder keg is going to explode, because the tensions, and especially, I mean, the later it gets darker, people get restless, and and now they've arrested reporters, and so the police are even more on edge because now the media is the scrutiny, and they're under a microscope, and the protesters are going to or the rioters, I keep calling them protesters when they're really not, the rioters are now going to take advantage of that because they can now go and get away with this stuff, and if the police do anything, they can say, oh look, they're oppressing us, and in the police state. I mean, I even saw tweets comparing this to Tiananmen Square.
Oh,
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Look, okay,
I mean, come on.
Look. And yes, let's be careful. I'm leaning back in my chair now. Oh no.
Don't do that. Please don't do that.
Look, in some situations, I think that an overwhelming use of police force is necessary. If you have rioters, yes, that's necessary. You have to have the larger force. I have no problem with that. At the same time, though, when it comes to situations that, like tonight, like today, where they had just that overwhelming force show up for the protest, there's a difference between responding to trouble and expecting trouble. And that's a big problem. And that's the problem that the police are going through right now.
Exactly. Yeah, and Captain Beezer sent me a tweet on Twitter that it should be a state issue. The governor should be stepping in, and maybe that could be the outside force that they need to sort of work this out. And
yes,
what I want to see come from this is answers and justice for Mike Brown and his family. If the allegations are true and he was shot for no reason, justice needs to be served. If there was legitimate reason and the cop responded appropriately because he was either attempting to grab his weapon or being aggressive, then that needs to be said too. But
right, and I think here's the other thing. This happened, day before yesterday? I mean, we're only 2 days away from the actual shooting itself. You cannot expect a police department to, they have to do an autopsy and crime scene photos and testing, and they have to interview witnesses and the police officer and everyone involved. And then, they have to sift through all of this stuff. It's going to take a little more than 24 to 48 hours for them to come to any kind of conclusion. So at this point, demanding an answer as to what exactly happened is preposterous.
Yeah, the shooting happened on Saturday, so
right.
That's Sunday, Monday,
Saturday,
Tuesday, 4 days.
Okay, so we're 4 days. But
thank you, Alan.
So, and on top of the fact that they're having to investigate a shooting, an officer-involved shooting.
It's been a week since this happened, by the way.
He was shot on Saturday.
It happened last Wednesday.
No, it was Saturday.
Nope, it was last Wednesday.
Okay, so it's been a week. But in that week of them, trying to interview all the witnesses and do the autopsy and get all these things done, they've also had to deal with riots and violence and all of this other stuff. I'm not making excuses for them. I'm certainly not justifying their behavior. I don't think they've handled this very well, but I'd like to keep the criticism legitimate.
Yes.
Let's not start in conspiracy theories of, well, I mean, they aren't saying anything, so it's because they're trying to cover up something.
Yeah.
I mean, I had somebody tell me on Twitter that, the reason, the funeral home wouldn't let his parents see the body. And so that meant that it was some sort of conspiracy. And I'm like, well, some jurisdictions don't allow, if they can identify the body without a viewing, they don't, that they release the body to the funeral home, you see the body then.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what, but it was like, oh my God, this is, they're covering something up. And it's like,
No.
It's been 3 days. Could you just take a deep breath here and let's not get carried away?
Yeah,
That's all.
Let's all take a chill pill. Let's all relax.
Exactly.
Let's get all the facts. And then, this is the same situation as George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin.
Exactly.
And I said this a couple of days ago. I'll say it now again, which is there are some cop shootings, there are some police-involved shootings that originally look totally justified, and then you find out that they're not.
Yeah.
There are some police shootings which don't look justified at all, and then you find out, the cops did what they should have done. And in that situation, you've got to wait. Mm-hmm. You've got to figure out what was going on before you go from there. And Alan in the chat room says that the shooting was August 9th. If that's the case, then the story that I read over at St. Louis, the St. Louis local station, then I'm wrong, because what CBS St. Louis is saying is that police in St. Louis County, Missouri, say an officer shot and critically wounded a suspect early Wednesday. Oh, okay. I misread what they said.
Okay.
All right, yeah, it was back. It was Saturday. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Yeah, and what I said, I want to see justice be done, whether the cop acted inappropriately and or he acted and his actions were justified. And what I'm hoping comes of this at a minimum is a playbook for how police departments should not handle officer-involved shootings like this, because I don't want to say it's going to happen again, because I would hope it wouldn't, but something like this is going to happen again, and we don't want to see a repeat of this, because this is awful for everybody involved, and it's not helping to solve the problem.
Yeah. I'm going to take over real quick, Amy, because we do need to go. Be sure to follow Amy at Modern Comments. That's at Modern Comments. You can also follow Heather Boulware at H Boulware. That is Boulware. And I did that right off the top of my head. How do you like that?
I am so
impressed.
You can follow me at EYE Desert Blog. That's at EYE Desert Blog. Also, if you want to follow back, feel free to interact with me, and then we'll talk and have fun. Coming up next is a Right War. Be sure to stick around, because Chris Lash is our guest. And that ought to be very fun. It's Right War with Liz Harrison and myself. Chris Lash is the guest. And yes, we will be talking Ferguson, as well as possible media bias in this. So, with that being said, guys, have a good night. And we will catch you
Thanks,
next.
guys. It was awesome.
We'll catch you guys next week.
Awesome. And happy left-handed day to the lefties.
This show is copyright by VLR Media. All opinions of hosts, panelists, and guests are their own and may not reflect the opinion of VLR Media or anyone else.